And so I said, I'll put it all together. And when we first started, we actually did it over the regular telephone. I would call him and I would record our conversation, and then I would digitize it and post it online, because all these great things like Riverside and all that weren't even in existence yet. This is way early days. And so we did our recording on telephone until Skype came along, which was probably around 2004, I think.
In today's episode of my podcast story, we have Bob Lement, the creative force behind the long-running podcast, Static Radio, known for its off-killed humor and spontaneous dialogues. Static Radio has been entertaining listeners since its inception in 1999, showcasing Bob's unique ability to blend comedy with discussions on pop culture, current events, and the paranormal. With over 2 decades of experience in podcasting, Bob brings a wealth of knowledge and a refreshing perspective to the medium, all while embracing a fully improvised style that keeps audience coming back for more. He's here to share his inspiring journey on how he built his show from the ground up and the impact it has had on both his life and the life of his listeners. Tell us your name and the name of your podcast.
Sure. So my name is Bob Lement, and I have done a show called Static Radio at staticradio.com for quite some time. And I do another less frequent show, but about every 3 weeks or so, called Mondo Frico at mondofrico.com, which is Static Radio is more comedy, and Mondo Frico is a mesh of comedy and the unusual happenings. So like paranormal, UFO, stuff like that.
Okay. It's how long has it been running for? Okay, more like how long have you been running?
I've actually done Static Radio since 1999.
Wow. That's about.
So my podcast story is a pre-podcast story, because we were recording before there was podcasts. We recorded.
That's exciting.
We recorded shows for 5 years before everybody said, "Hey, we'll call it podcasting."
Yeah. Wow. And then when did you make the decision to migrate, kind of like to get into podcasting?
Well, basically, I was. When I was in college, my partner and I, Miles Tuttle, we did a show on college radio, and we called it The Static Show. And we did that over the course of about 2 years. While we were both in college, we got out of college, and we said, that was a lot of fun, but now we have to go earn a living and be boring. And I said, hey, wait a minute. I got an idea. We could do our show on the internet. And this was early days, right? Yeah. So audio on the internet really wasn't a thing back in 1999. And so I said, but I know how to do that. And we can do that. And so he said, okay, he's not the technology person in this, in our group here. And so I said, I'll put it all together. And when we first started, we actually did it over the regular telephone. I would call him and I would record our conversation, and then I would digitize it and post it online, because all these great things like Riverside and all that weren't even in existence yet. This is way early days. And so we did our recording on telephone until Skype came along, which was probably around 2004, I think. And now Skype's dead, which is funny, because it just died this month, right?
Officially.
So, well, the funny thing was, I was on Skype and he was on a telephone, because he didn't know how to use Skype at that point. And so eventually I got him to use Skype, and then we've evolved over the years using various platforms to record. But yeah, that's what all happened. But yeah, we did shows for 5 years, and then I was listening to Adam Curry, who's the Podfather, right? The guy who kind of brought all this stuff to fruition, with another guy named Dave Weiner, who was a programmer, and Curry was talking about podcasting, but he hadn't named it yet. He didn't name it podcasting. A journalist actually named it podcasting. And so, but it was an interesting thing. I'm like, we're already doing this. Yeah. The difference is that we didn't have, and this is all gets into jargon, but RSS enclosure, which takes your MP3 file and, downloads it to somebody's phone, or at the time iPod, right? So, because we were doing this before MP3 existed. So our first shows were actually in a format called RealAudio, which isn't really around anymore. But that was kind of the first internet-based audio, I would say the most major internet-based audio program at the time. Back in '99 was RealAudio. And then eventually we did MP3s, podcasting became a thing. And we had a list. And so we were on that list within the first 50 podcasts. So I don't remember exactly what number, but I know we were in the first 50.
Yeah. Wow.
Because it grew pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's probably within the first 25, but I don't really like saying that because I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because everything was happening so quickly back then. He used to have a website with a list of all the podcasts, and I didn't, it's not in existence anymore. I really wish I would have took a screenshot or something, but I didn't. I figured, this will be here forever.
Is it available on Wayback Machine? I don't know. When did Wayback Machine even come into existence?
I looked on the way back. It's not there anymore.
Ooh.
Yeah. So you're young and you're stupid and you're like, yeah, this is going to be here forever. It's the internet. Everything's there forever. Well, it's not, just to tell you.
I have the picture available. I'm willing to sell it for you for
$10,000. That's great. See?
Yeah.
You know how this internet thing works.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a very nice evening story that you could tell, and feel like, oh, these are the OGs of podcasting.
Yeah. And it was, interesting. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
Back then, and it all, was just happening, and people were having fun, and I still am. I mean, that's the whole point of this, is to have some fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. I want us to, while we're still about 25, 26 years back. I want us to just go back, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions, and then we can move on back to the present. During the first days, earlier on, you mentioned that one of the struggles was why you loved doing all these things. Of course, you needed to keep a body. You needed to feed the body too. You needed to have a job, and in order to get income.
Right.
You mentioned that you had a brilliant idea to make this thing a thing. How did you monetize? That's the word.
Well, here's the problem for me. We've monetized a couple times over the years. Oddly enough, we were part of Mevio, which was Adam Curry's podcast business. It started out as a thing called Pod Show and then became Mevio. And we did that for a while. But I've never quit my day job because there really hasn't been money in podcasting until probably the last 5 years. I mean, there was money, but it's not enough to live on. And by that time I was well ingrained in, working and having a career. And so I've never really worried about the monetization of things because I've always had another career. And this has always been my fun thing, right? So we do this because we enjoy doing it. Miles and I love to talk to each other, and it's a comedy thing. And so we're constantly making new comedy. And so the monetization aspect of it really hasn't been in the front of mind. I mean, I've thought about now that, there's kind of more opportunities that maybe we should take advantage of some of these things. But back in the day, I mean, there wasn't any way to monetize. Curry's pod show was probably the first way to monetize. And what you had to do was read commercials. It was just like radio.
Yeah.
You'd get a sponsor. We were sponsored by Petco. If you can remember, there was a thing called Petco.com, which I think is gone now as well. And so Petco was our sponsor for a couple of years when we were on Mevio. And so, yeah, I mean, but again, the money wasn't enough to even worry about. It was actually more of a nuisance, if you can believe it. Because when you have a regular job and you have, a regular paycheck, then extra money becomes extra burden for taxes and stuff because it's not taxed the same way. And so it has to be enough money to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it never was enough money to be worthwhile. And so when Mevio folded, We just never picked it back up again as far as monetization, because it was like, that was nice and it was fun, but I really didn't enjoy doing the commercials, and the money was not enough to matter. It was really more of a headache than it was a blessing. And so now that we've gone, down the road a little further, now I'm thinking about it again, and maybe we'll do something. But I'm not so kind of like you. You have your show and you have a flow to it, right?
Yeah.
The commercials always got in the way because you had to put the commercial in the kind of towards the middle, and so then it kind of breaks the flow of everything, right? So I used to try to have fun with the commercials and kind of weave it into what we were doing, but that didn't always make everybody happy. So, it was kind of, kind of a pain in the neck when you finally got down to it. So, but I mean, I think nowadays it's much more, seamless and integrated. And so like they'll do a pre-roll, and then they'll do a break, and they'll do a post roll and everything. It's much more slick than it used to be in those days. Yeah. And so it may work, I don't know. We may try it again.
Yeah. See where it goes. The second show you and your partner are currently doing right now. Can you tell me a little bit about that show and when you started that one?
So Mondo Frico is actually, I have a different co-host. His name is Rob, and Rob and I actually met. I guested on a different show of his, and we kind of hit it off. And I invited him to do a series of kind of one-off things that I was just experimenting with about. Because I was on his show and I talked about a paranormal thing that actually happened to me, and that was part of the show for him. And then I said, hey, that was fun. Would you want to do a couple more of these, and we'll just do them, as just kind of fun one-off kind of things. And we had a lot of fun doing that. And so we came up with Mondo Frico, which is a right now we're doing, I think, every 3 weeks a show, and it's all about cryptids and UFOs and paranormal and supernatural things. But you learn about some interesting stories, kind of from that world. And then we kind of cut up a little bit in between. And so it's comedic, but not fully comedic, whereas Static Radio is total comedy. There's no other part of it that's anything else but comedy. And Mondo Frico is a little bit more informational about these stories, and then comedy layered on top of that. And so it's a little bit different, but for me, it's kind of the same, just because everything so far, I've always tried to inject a little bit of comedy into it, because that's kind of what I like to do for fun. So yeah, but Mondo Frico, we only started. It's not even a year old yet, so I think I'm trying to think now. I think maybe over the summer last year we recorded, and then we picked up Mondo Frico in the fall, and have been doing that now for a little while. So yeah, mondofrico.com if you want to check it out. It's a little more, I guess, oddly enough, it's probably more commercial than Static Radio in a way, because Rob is a musician and he does music for it and so forth. Unfortunately, Miles and I aren't musicians at all, and so we don't have any of that on our show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a little bit more production value with Rob in some aspects with the music and so forth. So he'll write songs based on. He wrote a Dogman song, which is about this cryptid called the Dogman, and it's good. It's a good song.
Yeah. Well,
you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah. Currently the podcast, more like the internet radio tone podcast, it has metamorphosed over the years. So right now it's the podcast. Have you adopted, kind of joined the YouTube train that video too on YouTube, or you just doing audio?
Yeah. So on both of them, we do a video version. The funny thing is, this cat that you're seeing right now, the reason I have the cat is because I love to experiment with things. And so around 2018, we had a listener. He actually, way back when, probably in the early 2000s or like 2002 or something, he goes, "It would be funny to see you guys animated." And I always had that in my head for like probably 10, 15 years. And then whenever I get a chance, just the way life works, I work on these ideas, and I found a way to animate myself. And so in 2018, I animated both Miles and I to do for YouTube, to do the show. And so then I was the cat, and then he was Snowman, and the show was fully animated. So the two of us talking was fully animated. You can go look at them if you go to our YouTube channel and see. We did, I can't remember how many shows, probably at least 6 months or more shows that were fully animated. And then I went on vacation. And I came back from vacation. And I'm like, this animation is really hard. And so I quit because the problem is he doesn't have the equipment or the knowledge to do what I'm doing. And so I had to animate it after the fact. And so I had to do all this work, right? And so then a couple of years go by, and 2020, COVID and so forth, and then podcasting is taking off again, right? I call this this is really the third iteration or the third boost of podcasts. You hear Web 2.0 and so forth. This is the third bump for podcasting, was 2020. And so I started I'm like, I'm going to be a guest. I'll resurrect the cat. And so the cat is live, right? So unfortunately with Miles, whenever I did those, we couldn't do those live because he couldn't do them live. And so now I do it live, and it's no big deal. I don't have to put a lot of work into it, which I'm lazy if you haven't figured that out. And so now I do the cat for our show, but he's not animated anymore. And then I do the cat for all these interviews that I try to do every once in a while, like with yourself. So I just go out and I'm Bob the cat. So go figure.
Yeah, wow. So how's the YouTube like currently? I don't know. I would have loved for you to like pull up the screen of the couple of the shows on YouTube, and so that people can see what it looks like. But I don't know if it's going to, because I don't know how the technical is. I don't know if it will affect the animation.
I'm not set up tonight to do that.
Okay.
But but I mean, if you go to staticradio.com, you can go over and click on the YouTube link, and it'll take you over there. And there's, like I said, there's probably, a good 30 or 40 of them out there. So, it looks basically like this, but it's got two people instead of just me talking. It's kind of a thing. Apparently, I mean, this is, I'll make a prediction here. This is going to be the future, right? So you have to get your cartoon together, because a lot of people are going to be doing this. I can almost guarantee you that that's going to happen, because it's already integrated into Zoom, right? But it looks different. I don't think it looks as good on Zoom when they do it. I'm doing it a little more manually to get a certain style, a certain look. And most of the ones that they do currently on Zoom and on other platforms, they don't look quite as clean and aren't quite as like mine's very two-dimensional, and I think they all try to be a little bit more three-dimensional. Unfortunately, it doesn't look good, it doesn't look as good. I don't say it looks good. It looks good, but it doesn't look as good. And you can do the filters where you put the dog nose on your face and all that kind of stuff. And people do that, but I think this kind of more, kind of more of a contemporary animation style, I think is going to be one of the things coming up over the next couple of years because of AI and everything.
Can you walk us through what a typical episode on either show looks like, and kind of like the from idea to publishing on each of the show? And so you could, it would be nice if you could mention some of the tools or apps or softwares that you use for each of them.
Yeah. So over the years, I mean, we used a bunch of different stuff, but right now, so the interesting thing about Static Radio is Miles and I are so polished that we do everything live, and everything goes straight to recording. when we start. So we start like the show, and we run to the end, and everything is recorded, and everything happens like clockwork. The show is very simple. We tell funny stories. So we start out the show, have a little bit of banter. I tell a funny story. Miles interjects, and then he tells a funny story, and I interject, and then we close it all up, right? So it's not a horribly complicated situation. The gist of the whole show is that I want to make him laugh and he wants to make me laugh, because if we make each other laugh, then the audience is going to laugh as well.
Okay.
And so, but we have it down timing wise to where we do pretty much a half-hour show, and from start to finish, when I hit the button, it happens, and there's no editing, there's no stopping. Everything just flows, and it really is great, because I mean, it really is a skill that we've accomplished, ourselves, to be able to do this, because it's very smooth, and even if it's not smooth, we can recover. And so that's the important part, right? So you train yourself to be able to recover from things and so forth. Only thing it gets us is if there's internet outage or computer crashes or something like that. But we do that from start to finish. Now, the funny thing is, over this last year, we've been doing our show live on YouTube when we record, and doing it live on a thing called Plausible, which is a comedian's platform. So it's a platform where comedians can go do comedy, like comedy shows. Most of it is stand-up comedy. We're probably one of the few story comedy things on the channel. And so we do it live in two places. You can go to Plausible, and in Plausible, you can interact with us. And I always encourage people, I'm like, go on Plausible, you're in the audience, and then if we want, then we'll talk to you, and we'll say, hey, guest, you got a story? And then we have pull in the audience for for a little interaction there. But everything also goes out live on YouTube, and so it's really fun. And we just over the years, we've built up this kind of muscle memory for telling funny stories, and it works out really well. Now, Mondo Frico is a whole different ball of wax, because Rob and I, we record, and it gets edited down kind of like more traditional way that most people do it, right? So we record on Descript. I think it's called Descript FM.
Squadcast.
Like Squadcast. Yeah, the old Squadcast. Now Descript owns it. Yeah, the old Squadcast FM. And so then we record that way, and then it gets edited down, and music's added, and we do little featurettes. So we have a quiz on the topic of the show. We have little funny interstitial things about information on the topic. So this last one was Leveland UFO case, and so there's a little thing about talking about what that's all about. But then all that gets edited together into script, and so then it gets put out, and then Rob sometimes will write a song and put it on there, and so it's a little bit more of a produced show. And I'm trying to think of what else he uses. Now, the funny thing is, he uses a lot of AI for all his research. So he's the researcher, and I am the I always say I'm the idiot in the other chair, because I just basically kind of make fun of whatever's going on, and I don't really do too much research. My point is, I come in as knowing what I know, which I do read up on a lot of this stuff, so I know a few things. So I'm not blindsided most of the time, but then I come in and interject and try to goofball it up a little bit. And it all works, though. We have a good rhythm and a good style, and I think it all comes together pretty well for that show. But that's a little more traditional. There's editing and everything involved with that. Whereas Static Radio we're live and we do it. It's one shot and we get it all done.
Yeah. Well, so far that you've been doing the podcast, right? even probably that's about 20, 25, 26 years now. How would you say how has the industry changed? Would you say we have it?
Oh, it's
Now, I don't want to lead the question, but you get what I'm saying. How has the industry changed over? What are some of
sure.
the changes you love to
It's
talk
become
about?
an industry.
Oh, it
It's
wasn't.
actually become
It
an
wasn't an
industry.
industry
So
before.
no, it wasn't. There
Yeah.
was nothing. Nobody cared. I mean, if back in the early 2000s when I first started, absolutely no one cared that I was doing this, and no one wanted to hear about it. So it wasn't like I was running around saying, "Oh, I'm doing the show on the internet, everybody," and they would, be, "Oh, that's great." It was always like, "Who cares?" And then even when podcasting became a word, it still was, "Who cares?"
Yeah.
Really so the first thing of podcasting was 2004 when they coined the term. The next thing in podcasting was 2011, right? And then the third one now is 2020.
Okay. What happened in 2011?
Yes, there was some things in 2011 that made that's where you got PBS was doing things on podcasting, right? They were podcasting. PBS was mostly it. Got a few other kind of more Mark Maron, some of those folks, but still no one cared. There was no money in it really at this point and so forth. Not until 2020. That's when the money came in, right? So yes, Joe Rogan was doing his podcast in 2009. Nobody cared. They didn't care until Spotify paid him millions of dollars to keep doing it.
Yeah.
That's when everybody took notice. And that wasn't in 2009, I can tell you. That's way later than that. That was what? That was probably 2020 or 2019. So, nobody's cared until recently. And the only way you can tell that is because of all these celebrities now. Every freaking celebrity has got a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and some of them aren't even interesting celebrities. I mean, some of them are just people that, Ted, I always make fun of poor Ted Danson. Ted Danson has a podcast. He is so old, right? He's like almost 80 years old, right?
Yeah.
He's got a podcast, which is great, but he doesn't know how to do anything. I can tell you right now, Ted Danson is not making any decisions technologically on his podcast. Now it's Hollywood, right? So they have all these support people and producers and so forth. And that's what's really changed, is because they can do that. I mean, I guess it supports it at this point, but now you're still talking. It's a whole different arena from guys like you and me who are, just interested in doing these things and getting our voices heard, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a production team. We don't have publicists. We don't have a bucket of money that we can just throw ads onto every social media with. And that's the difference. Now, the funny thing is that really what has happened is the reason podcasting, I think, is come into its own is not because of podcasting. It's because everybody has a phone and no one cares about the radio anymore.
Yeah.
And so what's happened is it's easier, believe it or not, to listen to something on your phone because people don't have radios anymore. And so it's just basically taken the media from one place to another. And so now that there's, now that it's so convenient and everybody knows about it, now then all these names are getting in there and so forth that are, they're going to make money because they have money to make money. So, it's really hard for an individual to do this on their own. I always joke with people. I say, if you want to make money in podcasting, sell podcasters something. You don't want to do a podcast. You want to sell them people who want to do a podcast, like Riverside. Riverside makes money because they're selling you something. And YouTube makes money because you're putting content onto their site and they're making the money, right? I don't know if you've ever gotten any residuals from YouTube, but it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And same thing goes with Spotify, all of it. So, think of something that you can sell to podcasters more than you think of something to be a podcast. And if you want to make money, that's how you make money, because that's where it's at right now. And I mean, that's where it's been for quite some time. Unless you are, I mean, you get lucky. I mean, people get lucky, right? And your voice breaks out and you get a following, and you really work it, it can happen. But it's not going to happen just because you do a show every week. I mean, there has to be a lot of work, and then you need to start investing into it. And then, I mean, it helps you if you have somebody to back you, or you are a name, right? So you're from other media, you're from television, you're from movies, you're from, someplace else that you have this exposure, because that's the only way to differentiate yourself from all the rest of the stuff. And, I don't want to be a downer, because now you're like, Bob, you ass, why are you telling me this now? This is terrible news. Because it is fun. It's very fun to do. And if you enjoy doing it, you should do it. It's just like anything else. I play golf, and I'm horrible at golf, and I spend money on golf, and I've not gotten any better my whole life, right? I still suck. But on the days I get to go with some friends, it's fun. And that's what I like. And that's the part that I do. I'm never going to get any better. I mean, that ship has sailed.
Hey, just a quick break. If you enjoying the insights so far and want even more behind the scenes ideas, inspiration, and tools for growing your own podcast, join my email list at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. You get access to helpful resources, exclusive updates, and the kind of stuff I only share with my email subscribers. Whether you're starting out or already podcasting, there's something valuable waiting for you. Head over to mypodcaststory.com/join and subscribe. Now, back to the episode.
And I'm never going to, be anything in that realm, but it's still fun to do, right? So, the same kind of thing applies here. So as long as you're enjoying it, and to me, like you said, you're in Nigeria, right? So it's great because I get to meet you, who's in a whole different part of the world, and talk to you, and we get to have this little bit of shared experience, right? So I've talked to people all over the world because of doing this. The other this week is funny. So there's a listener, his name's Manny the Mailman, and Manny the Mailman's been a listener to Static Radio for probably over 20 years. And so I got to know Manny. He lives in New Jersey, and he's a mailman. And so at one point, Miles and I came up with this little character called Flat Manny, which was a picture of Manny the Mailman, as like a cartoon picture of Manny the Mailman. And we would take Flat Manny when we go on vacation and stuff and get pictures with him with like Mount Rushmore, or, I was in Florida and I got a picture with him at Disney World. And this became a little character that we perpetuated on social media. It wasn't even part of the show. We invented it on the show and then manifested it into being through social media. Well, Manny just retired from being a mailman, and on his retirement cake was a picture of Flat Manny, which is the cartoon version of him.
Wow.
I thought that was wild, because never in a million years would I have thought that I would have so much influence on this person that his retirement cake would have a picture that I helped create on his cake. We don't talk to each other on any regularity. And the funny thing is, he didn't even buy the cake. Somebody bought it for him. So not only did I influence him, I influenced his circle of friends to do this. And so, I mean, if you think about that, if you think, in a weird context, you're like, that is just mind blowing, because, in pre-internet podcasting stuff, it would have never happened. Ever. There would have never been a chance for it to happen. And so, and Flat Manny, oddly enough, other people I have on the website where you can go print out Flat Manny and you can take him with you wherever you're at. So like you could take a picture with Flat Manny in Nigeria and then post it on social media and tag it at Flat Manny, and everybody would see it and say, wow, there's Flat Manny's in Nigeria. And so it's just a ridiculous thing that we kind of dreamed up one show and then kind of made it happen, and it's had a life of its own ever since.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's for me, it's the fact that the opportunity to have to influence a circle of people. That's for me, it's really powerful, and the fact that I get that privilege, like it's something that I really, 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 really admire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you get to meet everybody, and it's just great. I mean, you get to see, what everybody else is talking about and thinking about, and all these different perspectives.
Yeah. Well,
that's the great thing about it.
I noticed that you have a day job, and currently you have about two podcasts, two shows that you managing. With each of the show, you were fortunate enough to have a partner, right? Can you give us some of the behind the scenes on how you get to manage the both of these shows, and even with your day job, your full-time job?
So I guess for me, so Static Radio is the longest running one, right?
Yeah.
So that one, I would say, if you had to figure out, I manage that show. So I'm the manager of that show. Miles contributes and so forth, but I kind of set the pace, and, we're going to record this here and so forth. And so to me, though, the thing that you have to do is just be committed, right? So, over the we're started 26 years now. Over the 26 years, we've probably only missed 6 or 7 shows. So 6 or 7 weeks out of 26 years, we didn't have a show. And each one of those times we didn't have a show was because of some tragedy, right? Miles had family members die, and so we didn't do a show. 9/11 happened. We didn't do a show because it was kind of a national tragedy that I can remember. I had children who were born, so we didn't have a show because I had a baby that was born, but only missed a week. I didn't miss a bunch of weeks. I missed a week, and then we were back at it. And then within the last 5 years, my house burnt down,
Ooh,
and we missed a show. But no, that's okay. But I'm just saying, within a week, we were recording again. I missed 1 week, and because I lost everything, and so I figured out a way to record the show the next week. And you have to be, I mean, it sounds a little bit insane when I say that, but you have to be that committed. So you have to have that drive, just like with anything that you want to do. You have to have that drive to say, we're doing a show this week. Right. Well, it doesn't matter if you do it every week, if you do it every 2 weeks, if you do it every, 3 weeks or every month or whatever. Set the pace and keep it. If you can't keep the pace, then maybe you need to change the pace, because whatever you set, you need to keep. Because what's going to happen is eventually people are going to be expecting you to be there. Yeah. And when you're not there, then they will go elsewhere. And so just like anything, even though we're not talking about big money or anything, you really have to commit yourself to doing it, and figure if you set a pace that's too difficult, then just change the pace, but try to keep up with it. You know what I mean? I don't know if you got this when you were a kid, but when I was a kid and I would be like, I want to be on the basketball team, right? Or whatever, baseball team, let's say. I did both of those. But anyway, my parents were like, we're not quitting. You got to go the whole season. You can't say I'm going to go and then go for like 3 games and then stop going. And that's the way you have to face this. You have to go, I'm in it for the long haul, and keep that pace going. And so sometimes, you lose sleep or you have to fit it in, or you have to change it up just slightly so you make it every week. For my work, I travel quite a bit sometimes, and so sometimes we don't record on the same night because we need to fit it in, and I'm going to be gone. And so, but we fit it in, so we have to work on fitting it in. To make sure that we have something and be consistent. So we release every Wednesday. The show is up. And so we get it all done. That's what I would say. I hope I answered your question. Now I'm thinking, did I answer his question? And I
I
just
mean,
babble on.
you did share the behind the scenes, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, and it gave us
Yeah.
some pointers. But right now, because
But
one of the challenge a lot of persons
go ahead.
face, you know, as a lot of persons, they have the full-time gig they're doing, and you know, they have a family, there are other things too, so many facets of life that they have to, that are pretty important to them. And then they want to do a podcast. They're like, okay, they're not at a point where they can afford to say, okay, I need to have a podcast producer, right? I mean, that's a luxury. If you can afford that, that's great. But
Right.
they're not at that point. So, but they're like, okay, how do I put this? How do I put that? And at some point in time, they start 1 month, and then they're like 2 months, and then they come back 3 months. It's not exactly what they envision in their mind.
Right. Well, that's the other, you have a vision. I mean, you have to do, the other thing is you have to do something that you can accomplish. I mean, you want to set the bar high, but if you set it so high that you can't make it, then what's the point, right?
Yeah.
So, and I would say, everybody's like, I want a producer, and everybody wants somebody to do their work, right?
Yeah.
But the deal is, especially when you're an individual, you just have to do the work. You have to just decide, I'm going to do the work and do it. I mean, it'd be great if you could get a bunch of people to do all the work for you and you can just be the talent. But unless you're known, then no one's going to do that. So you just have to do it. Now, maybe you can build yourself up to the point where you can just be the talent, and that's great. But it doesn't start out that way.
Yeah.
Basically, I've always done everything, and I still do most everything. We don't hire anybody. If something needs to be done, I do it for the most part for Static Radio, and then Rob and I do it for Mondo Frico. We're a little bit more split, just because of our talents, right? We both have talents in a technological area, and so we can do that a little bit more. So, you know, and you know, and I do stuff on my own too. Like, I mean, we're talking here. I do individual interviews, like one-offs, just to do them because I'm interested in doing them. And I do other little projects. I'm constantly trying to think of ways to do other things, right? So I do all the social media for Static Radio. I do a lot of the social media for Mondo Frico, not all of it, but some of it. And so, you know, that's part of it too. So I would say another behind the scenes thing would be, you know, come up with your concept of what you want to do and get that going, and then focus on marketing. Marketing is going to probably take more time than doing the show. Yeah. But the marketing is what's going to get you more viewers or listeners. But just doing the show is not going to get you anybody inherently. Everybody's not going to suddenly just, oh, this is the best thing I've ever seen, and just everybody's going to tell their friends and everybody's going to subscribe. No, you have to market, and so you have to do all that stuff as well. And so make sure you put time into your schedule to do that. And more time into your schedule to do that than probably to do the show.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much for that. I feel like
I don't think you like that. You're like, oh, thank you so.
No, I feel like.
What do you mean I got to do all the work, Bob?
No,
you're such a jerk telling me I got to do all this. Where's the producer at that's going to take care of?
Yeah.
Where's my social media person?
You did mention earlier when you were explaining your process that you do live shows. And that's it, right? And I feel like as individuals, we need to find a way to, like, you know, tweak the concept of the show such that it doesn't require a lot of work. Like earlier on, you mentioned that you were doing the animation for you and your co-host. Mm-hmm. That itself was a lot of work. I mean, it would have been
that was a lot of work, yeah.
But you had to, like, you know, stop that and say, okay, no, let's pause that for now, and just do it this way. That because it's easier for the flow and everything, and it's less stress. But if you have someone who does the animation for your co-host too, that would be nice. You know, you get everything.
No, that would be great. Well, I think we'll eventually get to something where we've tried out a couple of things on his end to make it work. So, I mean, the thing is, you always got to make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be aware that otherwise you'll burn yourself out. And a lot of people do. They just burn themselves right out. So you have to find that middle ground to make it work. So I couldn't, at the time I was doing this back in 2018, it was a lot more difficult. And I mean, I would render the animation overnight, and then in the night it would fail while I was sleeping, and then I have to start it again, right?
Yeah.
So and then another overnight rendering. I mean, I just got a regular, I have slightly higher end computer, but it's not like I don't have a server farm or anything like that. You know what I mean? I got a computer and I can set it up to render for hours, but it takes hours because it's one regular style computer. It's not like a supercomputer or anything. And so, so I wanted to do it as a personal goal to see if I could accomplish it. And I did. And then I kept doing it until that point. Like I said, I went on vacation and I'm like, I can't keep up with this. And when I got back from vacation, I'm like, okay, we've reached the point of saturation. I can't do what I need to do to keep up anymore.
Yeah.
And it's, and so we have to readjust. And so that's what we did. And so we went, switched it back out. Now that I've got this set up where I can do it live, if I could mimic that setup for him and
that would be great,
and teach him how to do it, we would do it. But he doesn't have the background that I have. And so it's not that quite that easy. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I can't spend hours on tech support for him to do this. You know what I mean? So you have to, I mean, I love, he's a great friend. I've had him, for most of my life at this point, but there are limitations. And so I know that's a limitation. So we're just dealing with it and we move forward. So, it's not the end of the world or anything, but I'm not going to bash my head against that wall because it literally is a wall, right?
Yeah. Oh.
And I mean, I don't want to sound negative. I feel like I'm coming off sounding too negative on all this, but I mean, I'm trying to be
you're
honest.
Pretty honest,
yeah. I'm still
okay.
here.
I thought it went because I felt like you were still speaking, and it just stopped. So I was like, okay. What happened?
No, yeah. I'm still here.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be honest with the resources we have, the amount of time, the amount of money we have. That's if we have the money to like outsource and give I guess someone do it. And then we also have to look at the fact that okay, it's not like it's a business venture where like, oh, if I spend money, I'm going to make more stuff like that. It's something we're doing on the side, and
maybe someday it could be. I mean, it all has potential.
Yeah.
The great thing, I'll tell you what the great thing, let me give you a positive spin on stuff. The great thing about this is you do not have to be the most polished. You do not have to be the most fluent or like slick or anything. The great thing about all this is people like what people like. And if you're putting something out there that people like, then it will eventually, if you can, get the marketing going, get the socials and everything going, people will find it and you'll get an audience. And that's the great thing is to me, I'm dumbfounded because some of the things that I've, seen out in the world, right, in the world of podcasting and elsewhere, look terrible and they sound terrible and they are terrible, but people love them. And I sit back and I'm like, well, I mean, why would you like this? But the realities are it may not be for me. It's for other people, and that's fine. And you may fit into that category at some point, and you just have to go with it. I mean, you find what people like, and you move forward with it as long as it's something that you want to do as well. Yeah. And that's the great thing about the space is you don't have to be technically the best. In fact, I mean, there's so many people just using their phone to record wherever they're at that have an audience, and that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Bob, for sharing your podcast story, and thanks for spicing up my YouTube video with the character. Yeah.
Oh, hey, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm glad to talk to you. It's fantastic.
Yeah. If listeners want to learn more about you, what you do, and some of your podcasts, where can they do?
So if you want to listen to some silly stories, you can always go to staticradio.com, at Static Radio on almost all the socials. And if you want to hear about some cryptids and UFOs and paranormal stuff, you can go to mondofrico.com. Mondo Frico podcast on all the socials.
Once again, thank you so much for honoring the invitation to come on the podcast. And it was a pretty relaxed conversation. And yeah, thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.